que eu sei.
A new world order.
New world order.
A new world order.
The new world order.
A new world order.
A new world order.
The new world order.
New world order. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
Yo, what is up? It's your boy Drew. I forgot my smart boy glasses. I want you to believe I'm a smart boy. You're checking out that Drew World Order live. It's 4/10/2025. Early Thursday morning where I'm at. Appreciate everyone for being here. Get a nice short little stream for you tonight. Something I've been wanting to cover for a while. And that is our boy here on the thumbnail, Senator Paul Wellstone. Now, being from Minnesota, I'm interested in this. I think it's a big story to tell about how Minnesota went from, real high trust society to basically a third world country in my own lifetime, from a little boy to where I had to up and move. I was born and raised in Minnesota. I had a newborn baby when I was 42, I think, and I had to just take my wife and up and move, get out of Dodge because of COVID and all the other things that are happening. But that's why it's of interest to me, and to really watch it become, as Trump says, the shithole, the third world shithole that it became, very slowly and gradually over a long period of time. And this guy right here, you could call this guy kind of the event horizon of that whole thing. He's kind of the culmination of where all this progressive politics was going. This guy brought it to the next level, and then Obama brought it to the next level after that. If you're not sure about this guy, or you've never heard of him, he's actually killed in a plane crash a few days before he was seeking his third term in Senate. And I have a book here I've had for a long time. It's called American Assassination: The Strange Death of Paul Wellstone. I'll go through a few of the claims in this book as well. It's basically like TLDR. It's basically like libspiracies. Dear Firewall says, did he do something noble and pay the I'm not sure. And instead of taking all this time to get to, I'll just give my own opinion. As I do think there was a little bit fuckery afoot, but when you look at it at the time, through the lens of the time and where they were at, especially in this book, they go and blame George Bush or Republicans and all that. But I mean, it's way easier for me to post hoc look at it and see where everything went and apply kind of a different, conclusion to it. He slept with Gary Hart's wife. Who's that? That's what not necessarily the news says. But yeah, thanks for everyone for being here, man. Let's go, I guess. Let's get into it. Over.
Fire up the green bus and cue the firebrand.
This is the thing the guy was really famous for. That's why I had to put it on the cover. Is his like whimsical green bus. If anyone, I know there's a few people in the chat here that are from Minnesota, and I was what do you call it? I worked right down off of University Avenue where this guy's little office was located. So I saw this guy a lot way back in 99, 2000. And I mean, I didn't know anything about anything or any politics or anything back then. I didn't really think anything of it. But I definitely didn't think like he's an insane progressive liberal. Like how I would think that now. It'd be like, yo, this guy's a fucking kook. He's kind of the precursor to Tim Walz.
Cue the firebrand.
There will be no real national security until we invest in the health and the skills and the character and the intellect of our children.
I remember the first class I took with him. It was on social movements and community organizing. And I remember one of
So again, the dude was a community organizer. Like you see a lot with these leftists, like Obama and all that. They started out as community organizers. This guy's basically the template. Like I said, the event horizon of what progressives became. Even though this guy was extremely far left at the time, and I have no doubt he would pick up the all the leftist points that they're doing today, trans kids and all that stuff. He'd definitely be all about it. But back then, you know, that's how far the Overton window has shifted. Is that would have been political suicide back then, to whether you believed it or not, to talk about, you know, transgender children and everything like that. But this guy 100% would have been all on board for all that.
One of the first things he said in one of the early classes, which is that you can't separate the life that you live from the words that you speak.
Dan Kramer went from Wellstone student to volunteer to staffer.
And with really a philosophy of conviction. Walk your talk, fight for the things you really believe in. And he inspired many generations of people with that politics.
I'll give him that. He does seem like he will vote his conscience when you look at his voting record and everything. But the guy's a dipshit, though. So, you know what I mean? Just because he's voting what he believes, that doesn't... I do believe in his mind that he believed that it was right. I don't think he was just kind of grandstanding to get votes or anything like that. Just seemed like... He is kind of a, you know, like I said, whimsical and almost like a lovable type character. I can see how people resonated with this guy, but especially in Minnesota with the older white liberals, white guilt and all that reigning rampant over there. And this guy, he's still kind of a legendary figure in Minnesota and in like far left progressive circles. They do speak his name with reverence, but also, as we'll see, I'll show you later in the stream, he just wasn't even far enough. And some people today are kind of distancing themselves from him and his ideologies.
Right, and we're going to win November 6th.
Paul Wellstone was a college professor who excelled as a grassroots...
Hold on. Hold on.
Excelled as a grassroots...
We're going to win November 6th.
Definitely a rootless cosmopolitan, right? Look at him.
Paul Wellstone was a college professor who excelled as a grassroots community organizer long before he ever entered the political arena as a candidate. He never stopped fighting for underdogs and causes with long odds.
Look at that sweaty Jew.
At the state capitol, we often hear Democrats use the term, we all do better and we all do better.
Yeah. The idea that politics wasn't about left, right, or center. It wasn't about big money or power game. It was about the improvement of people's lives.
Politics is about the improvement of people's lives.
And then that morphed into this idea, really a broader philosophy of we all do better when we all do better.
Yeah, that's right where I worked. I worked right off a university in Cleveland. That looks like, pretty sure that's University Avenue. His little office was by a place called Twin Cities Reptiles. There was like a little reptile store and shit. And he'd have that bus there and all his little staffers outside all day.
We all do better when we all do better.
By the fall of 2002, Paul Wellstone was running for his third term, locked in a tight battle with St. Paul Mayor Norm Coleman.
Acting now, on our own, might be a sign of our power.
He made news for being the only senator facing re-election to vote against going to war in Iraq. And then days later, the earth shook. Senator Tom Harkin, the day that Wellstone's chartered plane crashed on approach to the Eveleth Airport, killing the senator, wife Sheila, daughter Marcia, and 5 others.
We'll miss you, Paul.
Now, the daughter Marcia, I'm pretty sure, is this the daughter? I'm pretty sure my boy John, my IRL boy John in real life had Marcia as a teacher. And you know what he said about her? He said, Khazarian milkers, brother.
Marcia and 5 others.
We'll miss you, Paul, and we'll never forget you.
Waves of shock and grief rolled.
It remains unimaginable. I mean, really, like, even though we know it's true, it's still 15 years later. it doesn't feel real.
In the ensuing days, Walter Mondale took Wellstone's place on the ticket, but
That's what I wanted to actually show before I went into this video, and I totally forgot. So let me pull this up real quick. Hold on a second. This is where it gets interesting to me, is because unless you're from Minnesota, I think it's very hard for people to understand. I'm looking at this one. This is the 84. Yeah, Ronald Reagan's election in 1984. The only blue state on the entire map in 84, way back then, is Minnesota, because Walter Mondale was on the ticket. He's from Minnesota. He was running for the vice president against Reagan. So that might be the only reason why Minnesota is actually blue. But that's how long the devil got the foothold into Minnesota. It went from a nice, conservative, it's like a hunting and fishing type state, to now it's like a super, as far left wing as California, Chicago, New York. And I know that's hard to believe if you live in those places, but if you're from Minnesota, I know you know what I'm talking about. And I know there's some people in the chat, man. Shout out if you're from Minnesota. Let us know. I forget who's there. I think Dave Spinball is from there, if I'm right. But that's where it started. Like, the devil gets a little foothold in the door. And it takes a long time, right? It takes 40 years to be a full-blown George Floyd riot, but that's how it starts.
lost after a memorial service that caused a stir when it became too political.
We can be the answer to his prayers if you help us win this election for Paul Wellstone.
And that's why I said, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Why I said about Walter Mondale. He was running for vice president in 84. When Wellstone died, it was 10 or 12 days before his third term re-election. The plane went down, and with just days to go, they dusted off the old corpse of Walter Mondale. They weekend at burning him out there. It just wasn't enough time or enthusiasm behind him. But that's why I was talking about Walter Mondale. I forgot to mention that.
Months later, federal investigators would pin the crash on Pilot Air.
The probable cause of this accident was the flight crew's failure to maintain adequate airspeed, which led to an aerodynamic stall from which they did not recover.
Every October 25th, Dan Kramer plants his sign in his lawn for a moment of silence.
And these signs are all over Minnesota still. And that one sign that you see in this house, we believe love is love, and women's rights are human rights, but whatever it is, Black Lives Matter. It says that like entire sign thing. It's almost like a meme. That's all over, especially Minneapolis. Everywhere you go, every single house has that sign. Like, my wife is from South Florida. She couldn't believe it when she came up there to live with me. Like, she thought it was just like some online meme. No, that shit's real. And then you still see these signs everywhere. But I would argue this guy's not even far left enough today for these people, even though he would be. Like, those issues just weren't like trending in his time. Yeah, DWS says Minnesota is deportable to hell. Yeah, you know what I say now that I live in Florida? I tell people that I'm from Minnesota. What they say is, "Oh, you mean where Tim Walz is from?" they see Tim Walz and they're like, "Oh, okay. That must be fucking insane up there."
I miss, probably more than anything else, his courage. Now more than ever, in this moment of time, we need people who are practicing a politics of conviction.
So there he is, the little Jew, Paul Wellstone. Real whimsical. Keep using that word. Here's his little voting. So on this chart, they rated him against his peers at the time in 2002. And he's the, if you can see almost on the very far left there, the purple triangle is Paul Wellstone. And so the further, left to right is your ideology by voting. And then higher and lower on the scale is based on your leadership, I guess. He's kind of in the middle of the pack leadership-wise, but he's an extreme far left voter, one of the most progressive. I would say possibly the most progressive at his time. You know, championing all these issues that we saw these come to fruition years later. And excuse me, where he became known is, like they said, he was a small grassroots activist, community activist. And he bought some commercials on Minnesota TV. And I remember these. I was a young kid, 18 years old or something. And these are actually made by what's called Northwoods Advertising. And they were behind Jesse Ventura's successful governor election in Minnesota and stuff. These are actually great, masterful commercials. They're almost like the, what do you call it? Like cable, public access type commercial, like so bad that it's good type commercial. And he paid these guys, they made this commercial for him. There's two of them here. This is the first one that's probably the most famous one. And you got to remember, it's a totally different time then. This is before the internet. So it's going to seem cheesy and hokey now, but the attention span and everything of people was different back then.
Hi, I'm Paul Wellstone, and I'm running for the United States Senate from Minnesota. Unlike my opponent, I don't have $6 million, so I'm going to have to talk fast. This is my wife, Sheila, and our children. This is my house in Northfield, where I've lived for 21 years. My son, David, farms, and I've worked with Minnesota farmers for years. We must stop the poisoning of the air and the land and the water. I'll lead the fight for national health care. I've been a teacher for 24 years. Labor endorsed.
Paul Wellstone won't slow down after he's elected. Vote for Paul Wellstone on November 6th.
Real short and to the point. Hey, I'm one of you guys. I'm with you. I'm here to help you. I'm a poor downtrodden man. I don't have the money of my opponent. His name was Rudy Boschwitz, the incumbent senator. And this race here, the majority of the senator was on the line, basically, with this race. That's why it was such a big deal that this guy won. But this is where Democrats, in my opinion, need to get back to this. Like, I'm one of you, and I showed a few streams ago the mayor of St. Paul, that black guy, I forget his name now, but he seems like a normal dude. He has a family. I'm sure he is bad shit. He wants reparations and everything, but you need to start showing people with their family, people out doing stuff, you know what I mean? Instead of just this extreme ideology of, we want to cater to this 2% of the population and everything. Show a dude with his family. Show some people doing normal things. That's what I would suggest to Democrats. People can relate to that. This guy, he's in a farm that looks just like where I live in Minnesota. You know, he's in front of this silo and stuff. Not hard to get these people to buy into your shit. Obama, all Obama said was change. One word. What change? Nobody knew, but they knew they wanted change. That's all he had to say is, I'm going to provide change. SA1 with the $9.99. Appreciate you, longtime supporter of the channel. SA1. I also am offering the memberships, only 99 cents. I'm going to continue to add more of my older private videos for the memberships, and you can join or cancel anytime at 99 cents. YouTube ran some promotion for me where they're going to pay me out $5 for every member I can get to join in the next month, but it doesn't account for the gifted memberships. So if you'd like to donate $1, join the membership, and your gift will be increased fivefold by YouTube, by the kindness of YouTube, I guess, by my rabbi handler. Here's his other commercial that was like really popular, and he's against this guy named Rudy Boschwitz, who's got, the incumbent, he's got a bunch of money.
When I decided to run for Senate, there was one thing I was looking forward to. So as it turns out, were a lot of you.
Well, I expect that there will be some debates.
I'd love to see you debate with you.
Well, I think there should be debates, yeah.
Some people have more money than others to play with, and where if you debate, you're kind of standing there without money.
Getting a hold of the person I had to debate, however, proved easier said than done.
Is Rudy Boschwitz here? No, he's not.
You don't want me to go in?
No, we don't like strangers walking around.
First, I try.
He's kind of a goof. He comes in with a little oversized suit. That might have been a little bit of the style at the time, you know, 99, whenever this is. But it's kind of like a goofy Rick Moranis type character almost.
No, he's not.
You don't want me to go in?
No, we don't like strangers walking around.
First, I tried his campaign headquarters. Let me give you my home phone number too, okay?
Sure. I'll make sure that he gets this, and we'll get back to you.
What do you think? Do you think we should have debates around the state? So that people can
I'll get
see
the
it?
message to him.
What do you think?
Glad to meet you.
No, but about these debates.
Thanks for coming down. Make sure he gets your message.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I'll see you all.
And this is, to be honest, and you know, objective. This is way ahead of its time. This is 1999, I believe. The internet's just coming into people's homes. People are, you know, buying. I worked at CompUSA at the time. They had the deals. You know, you buy this $2,000 computer printer monitor combo, and we'll give you $2,000 back in a rebate. You know, 6 months from now, you wait for the money back or whatever. They would send you a check. When you got to sign up also for 12 months of AOL or whatever it is. That was just getting into people's house. This type of commercial here is more reminiscent of like a modern day social media type trend post or something. You got to be thinking this is literally like 20 years ahead of its time type commercial. And again, Northwoods Advertising, they were behind Jesse Ventura successfully winning the governorship of Minnesota.
Nice car. Then I tried his office. Is he here?
He is not here. He is returning from Milwaukee.
No luck. I'll write my home phone.
Sure.
Is this your?
Yeah, Venus Rose in the chat says Michael Scott vibes, but we're absolutely 100% way ahead of its time, bro. Not that I agree with anything this guy agrees with or anything, but it's all about like marketing. Can you connect with that audience? Can you come up with the next thing? This is what Democrats are lacking today. And he continues to offer his home phone number on these things. Just makes him seem like he's such a real, genuine guy, you know.
I'm not sure. Probably not.
Looks like a nice one. Well, I don't have a lot of money, so I'll keep this one for our campaign.
That will be fine.
I tried everything.
Fucking little Jew.
I mean everything.
Not today.
I'm gonna steal your pen.
Did Rudy Boschwitz call? Did anybody get a call from him? Well, if he calls everybody, let me know. Hey, you guys? Okay, well, maybe I can find him somewhere then. Thank you very much.
Let me go back here. Even the color scheme, the green. That's why I made the cover green, but his sign is green. This is different than everything else you see. It's different. It's memorable. You remember this guy. There's nothing like this in Democrats today.
Well, if he calls everybody, let me know. Hey, you guys? Okay, well, maybe I can find him somewhere then. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye. They say he's in the cities. I don't know where he is. He's not in Minneapolis. They say he's campaigning, then I go to St. Paul. They say he's in Milwaukee. Rest assured there will be debates on the key issues of this campaign. Look for upcoming dates and places. And in the meantime, if you see a silver-haired gentleman in a plaid shirt, mention I'm looking for him. Yes, information. Do you have the telephone number of a Rudy Boschwitz, please, in Plymouth?
Way before then, you had to call. Get rid of some of these tabs real quick. But I've thought about this a lot. Like, what would I do if hey, Democrats came to me, they said, bro, you got this creative streak in you. What would you do? We need to rebrand. We're Democrats. We're fucking floundering right now. What do we do? I would say what the Democrats need to do, take some slightly younger type people. You need the whole age spectrum. But what Democrats need to do is take these people and just create some ad campaign. The governor of St. Paul, let me pull that guy up. That's who I said before. Or the mayor of St. Paul. Yeah, Melvin Carter. Here's a guy he's young, like Obama light. Get this guy, get a bunch of other, you probably got mayors and stuff all over the place like this guy that just have a family and are normal dudes. I would even like include it with like exercise. You have to do something. have to have some kind of hook. Have these guys all running like a Nike commercial. They're running down the street or something, 6 a.m. They're running. There's no one else on the street. This guy says, I run for your whatever, your right for better wages. Show another person, I run for this, whatever. I run for this platform we're running on. Show one of the older people, not one of the washed up old ones like Schumer or Pelosi, but you got to kind of connect with the older crowd too. Show some older lady and she says, I run for better education for students. And then another one, it's like a Nike commercial almost. I run for this, whatever, this and that and the other. And then at the end, they all come out. They say, hey, I run for you. And they all say it. I run for you. I run for you. And you could even get these people to fundraise at like 5K runs and everything like that. That's what I would do anyway. Get them away from all this like crazy transgender and all this like absurd shit that is so small of a percentage of people. And you can get them more into the hearts of like a regular, average, everyday American and get them involved in some type of activity or something instead of just, oh, we're going to stand outside of a Tesla factory and say bad Doge or whatever they're doing now is not working. You got to somehow like connect with these fucking people, man. So yeah, right here. This one was written right after he died. Said he stopped at Minnesota schools about once every 2 weeks. And when the senator was there, he didn't just speak, he listened. That's another thing too. Yeah, people, not just politicians. You guys got to listen to people, man. Anyone could talk and then wait their turn to say the next thing. It's hard to listen to people. It says Wellstone had the ability to really engage kids of all ages and listen to them. Sometimes you see politicians who are in school and it's really a photo op, but with Paul, he really listens to students. And that's the thing. It was a photo op for him, but you can take the extra 5 seconds per kid to really let it sink in what they're saying and give feedback of what they're saying. So yeah, it gets into how he died 2 weeks before his third term. He said he was only going to run for 2 terms. He promised, like, I'm going to run 2 terms and then I'm going to get out and I'm going to do something else. And then he decided he didn't have enough and he wanted to run for that 3rd term. Said late last year, so this is way back then. Wait, let me go back here. Mr. Wellstone was one of the Senate's most liberal members and a political maverick. He found himself on the losing end of a 98-1 vote against the Education Flexibility Partnership in 1999, arguing the bill offered flexibility in following federal rules at the expense of economists. So he cast his one vote, knowing damn well it didn't have a chance, and he was willing to be that one guy. And I think maybe he didn't believe in it, but he knew that would help him stand out against the grain and against just the pack of everyone else. If he could be that one lone dissenting voice. I really genuinely think this guy voted his conscience and he was just a total dipshit. Last year he voted with just 9 other senators against No Child Left Behind. Now, No Child Left Behind was a disaster. It's basically just pass everyone and give the schools more money. So he voted against it. He said Congress was not providing enough money to help the students in schools meet the law's ambitious new demands. He wanted more fucking money. That's why he did it. He didn't give a shit about the students. He just wanted more money paid out. He was also one of the few senators to criticize the law's expanding testing requirements. I'm amazed that so many of my colleagues are not supporting this federal mandate. He's talking about the No Child Left Behind. Every school district school child grades 3 through 8. I must say, I think this oversteps, if not the authority, the sort of boundaries of congressional decision-making on education. Now, that's the shit he had to say back then to get elected and to be political and to be relevant. If he was here today, he'd be saying the same shit they're saying now. Like, the school has the ability and authority to determine sex and gender of your child without the parent knowing. He'd 100% be saying that shit. He said back then, "Here I am, a liberal senator from Minnesota, but this is my honest-to-God belief. I'm convinced I would never have received my doctorate if I had taken the results of standardized tests too seriously or listened to those who put too much credence in what they measured," he said in a USA Today piece in the year 2000. Wellstone also sponsored an amendment that restored the Parental Assistance Information Centers, which provided $40 million in fiscal 2002 to encourage parental involvement in education. That's one of those USAID programs, huh? How could you have $40 million to get to parents investing more time into their kids' public education? There's really no way to measure that $40 million would go to that and be useful and have some type of result. And he also wanted increased federal aid to education. These people all want like 100% of the money to go to education. And then even then, it wouldn't be enough. Then we got to raise what the 100% is. They just think if you keep throwing more and more money at these schools and students, then the students will come out smarter. Yo, shout out to the chat. See Illumitami lighting it up. I'm not really reading it, Illumitami. I guess because I'm scared of you, right, Tommy? Trying to stay on point here. I'm trying to have a shorter stream. Yeah, here's that famous ad. At least famous in Minnesota. It said in 2000, or in 99, he made an exploratory committee to run for president of the United States. He thought it would be too hard on his health because of injuries he sustained as a college wrestler. And then his condition was later diagnosed as multiple sclerosis. Wellstone authored the Wellstone Amendment for the Bipartisan Campaign Reform of 2002. His efforts towards campaign finance reform were posthumously overturned in 2010 by the Supreme Court. He was the only senator facing re-election to vote against the congressional authorization for the Iraq War. And that's basically what this book gets into here. The book gets into George Bush and Dick Cheney killed Paul Wellstone because you can see right here on the back of the cover here too, it says Wellstone was murdered because his plane crashed. That it must have been the deep state or somebody against this guy. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but to think it's George Bush Sr. There's a famous quote from George Bush Sr. He did his little speech, and after the speech, the President Bush, you can go meet him if you're one of the senators, shake his hand and all that stuff. It said Wellstone was in his ear trying to pitch all this liberal gobbledygook, all this commie bullshit to George Bush Sr. And George Bush Sr. was heard over saying, "Who is this chicken shit?" He muttered after being grilled by Wellstone at a reception for new members of Congress. So again, in this book, where there's not much or little, if any, proof of any kind of Republicans or Bush crime family or anything being behind this kind of more modern day truther stuff, just anything you can cobble together. That's their proof, and they wrote a whole book about it. In the book, hold on, where did it go? Here were the suspicious points in the book. There's a few more, but I went to this AI to have him plot it out for me. It says Wellstone died shortly before a crucial Senate election where he was the key voice opposing Iraq. That doesn't necessarily mean somebody killed him, though, unfortunately. Maybe they did, but you need more than that. Does the weather condition? The book questions the official explanation that poor weather caused the crash, suggesting conditions weren't as bad as reported. When you read the NTSB report, they say the weather was pretty bad, ice on the wing, but the ultimate reason the plane crashed is the plane was unable to maintain the speed that it needed, and it went into a stall and fall. It says the communications issues. This book here highlights the alleged anomalies with the plane's communication systems before the crash. Eyewitness reports. Fetzer discussed eyewitness accounts where he claimed were inconsistent with official explanations. So one of them was a guy claimed that he had, now we're talking way back in 2002, a guy claimed that his cell phone kind of malfunctioned a little bit or something, like somewhere around the same time as this crash happened. And so the author of the books jumps right to, well, that means the plane was hit with an EMP. Now maybe it was, right? You gotta have more though than some guy in 2002 says his flip phone, his clamshell cell phone glitched out a little bit or something. Eyewitness reports. Fetzer discusses eyewitness reports that he claims were inconsistent with official explanations. The book raises doubts about the official determination of mechanical issues. Fetzer criticizes aspects of the NTSB investigation process and findings, and talks about electromagnetic weapons theories. One of the more controversial claims involves the possibility of the plane being targeted by an electromagnetic or directed energy weapon. So it's just full basic Spurg, what we would see today in Trutherville, like just make up and say anything with the most flimsy, reason behind it. That's actually a lot of what's in this book, which at the time, if I had read this closer to when that happened, I probably would have believed it, but I've looked into so much now. But I found some other things that are, to me, pretty suspicious. It says it is important to note the official investigations by the NTSB attributed the crash to pilot error and failure to maintain proper airspeed during approach. Now, this is a same pilot and same plane Wellstone flew on many times, so it is kind of weird this guy would just drop and die out of nowhere. And it does say here he was just as far left as basically Bernie Sanders, Russ Feingold, any of the furthest left people. And it said, in today's political spectrum, Wellstone would likely be positioned similarly to senators like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren on many issues. I think he would have adopted all the things that were to come, trans kids and all that. Definitely would have. It's just career suicide at the time. So when he died, they ran that Walter Mondale guy. And the other guy's name was Norm Coleman, who used to be a Democrat, and he flipped over to the Republican. And there just wasn't enough time to generate the votes. You believe that it's real. And Norm Coleman won that. The Republicans won that election after Wellstone died. And what's his name? Mondale was just old as hell at the time. Like, it's literally Weekend at Bernie's shit. And Coleman's actually the last, and in 2002, that's the last Republican senator or anything from Minnesota. Minnesota's true blue now. It's just, so you saw it started in 84 with the Reagan election. And that's how long it takes. It takes 20 years, I guess. One generation. And just like Yuri Bezmenov said, right? Like the Yuri Bezmenov shit is on point, whether people think he's an actor or not. Yuri Bezmenov says, half-baked intellectuals will get into universities and teach your kids. That's this guy. Right? That's the Yuri Bezmenov. Ideological subversion. And then traditional American values will be withered away. the official report is, they overshot the runway. They had to fly back around and come back for a second attempt at the landing. This is in Elvith in northern Minnesota. Not a major city or anything, but just a small little airport. And then the plane did not maintain its speed, stall and fall. That's the official story. Now, you did see there was many, if you looked into it at the time, there was many national news stories that blamed the weather. That may have been an early, a talking point going around. But even in the NTSB report, the weather's a minimum factor. There's the bus. Here's a story that was from 2012. So I believe that full woke shit happened. Like full blown woke is when you saw, what was that kid's name? Desmond the Amazing on Good Morning America. I think that was somewhere around 2014 or something. So this is right when Obama gets in for the second time, the time of this article. It says 10 years after his death, he still sets the bar for politics of convictions. Shortly before he died in a plane crash, Wellstone explained why he was in the Senate. I don't represent big oil companies, big pharmaceutical, or big insurance industry. They already have great representation in Washington. It's the rest of the people that need representation. College professor turned politician, Minnesota Senator's fiery speeches and dogged campaigning for progressive reform earned him the title the conscience of the Senate. First Senate votes he cast in 1991 was to oppose the U.S. military action in the Persian Gulf. 11 years later, he cast his last vote against a resolution authorizing George Bush to use force in Iraq. Soon after he died, cars in Minnesota and elsewhere began sporting green bumper stickers that read WWD, what would Wellstone do? It said he set the standard for what his campaign manager calls conviction politics, based on his leadership career on the idea that you just say that you believe what you say, and you put it out there for the voters. So yeah, he was a community organizer. So I think it's easy to say at the time, like George Bush is the big bad evil man running into Iraq. Bush did 9/11, this and that and the other. But we can look back at it now and see what happened after Bush, which is Obama and even further left, extreme left ideologies coming out after that. And really, you could even make the case, in my opinion, you could say maybe the people behind Obama are the people behind if this guy was to be murdered. I'd be more likely to pin it on Obama. A few years before, hold on one second. This was a few years before the Wellstone incident. There was a similar type thing where a election was about to happen. And the guy running for re-election died in a plane crash. Was that this lady? No, not this lady. What the hell's her name? This lady. Who is this lady? Okay, yeah, Jean Carnahan. So what happened is this guy was running for re-election. Her husband, this woman on the screen, he died in a plane crash days before the election. Because of the rules and regulation in place for the election in Missouri, they're not able to replace this guy on the ballot. There's a few days left, maybe a week or whatever it is. I don't remember the exact story. And so what they did, they just came out and said, okay, this lady, if you vote for the guy that ran the entire campaign that just died, if he wins, we'll put his wife in. She's going to stand in for him until we can have the next special election. Well, the lady won. The guy, I should say the guy who died in the plane crash, he won. And then the lady took the term, went to the special election. She won in the special election. I think she won a few more terms or something. This lady. Carnahan. Yeah, Mel Carnahan. Okay, that's the guy. So he was the governor at the time. I believe he was running for the Senate. Same kind of thing. Yeah, governor and Democratic Senate candidate. Right before the Paul Wellstone thing was in 2002, I believe. So the crash for this Mel Carnahan guy, he died in 2000. His Cessna crashed. Same explanation by the NTSB. Poor weather conditions, pilot error, and poor visibility. There was a special election. This man here, Mel Carnahan, won posthumously. His widow succeeded him in the Senate, and then she went on to win a few more times. She's called the First Lady of Missouri, his wife. What's her name? Jean. Yeah, his wife, Jean Carnahan. So to me, if you take that into account, you can see where the Paul Wellstone one. Not only did Paul Wellstone was in the plane and died, but it was his wife and daughter was dead too. So that would actually eliminate what happened here. That would take care of that if you're conspiratorial minded. Linda McMahon, DWS says. That's funny. There's another, remember, have you guys ever heard like John Kerry? He's fortune comes from Heinz ketchup. That is true. But the guy's name was John Heinz. And he had a midair collision with a helicopter like we're seeing now. It's kind of similar. And the guy died. It was John Heinz. And then his wife, who was the heir to all that Heinz money, she went and remarried John Kerry. That's where that John Kerry connection comes in. So there is a lot of these like suspicious plane crashes of senators and stuff like that. Yeah, Eastern Pennsylvania crashed, and I guess the crash landed on a schoolyard, killed even 2 little kids. The dude had 5 years in the House. He had 15 years in the Senate, John Heinz. Then his no good wife just went and shacked up with horseface John Kerry. But the craziest part to me is well, let's go into this real quick before I get into wrap it up real quick. I got way too many tabs open. Okay, yeah, the Northwoods advertising that was behind Paul Wellstone's thing. They were also behind Jesse Ventura. And if you remember, Ralph Nader, the consumer advocate, he ran for president as well as a third party, independent party. And they were behind his political ads as well. So it's actually a major force back then. I don't know if they're still doing anything, but way ahead of their time before the internet. Trying to find give me 1 second here. Kids now, his sons that are still survived, they're restoring his bus. His bus is a big deal here. Let me play this video while I'm looking for what I'm looking for here. Hold on.
The reason you should call Florida Seawall Solutions is we have years of experience piece of Minnesota political history is getting a facelift. Senator Paul Wellstone's campaign bus is being restored to its former glory. Wellstone, his wife Sheila, and daughter Marcia were killed in 2002 when their plane crashed near Evelyn. Tonight, Joe Mason looks at the effort to keep Wellstone's legacy alive.
Outside, there's repair work at Northfield's Benjamin Bus Incorporated. But inside, the work is repairing Minnesota history.
I honestly have to say I feel blessed to be able to be a part of this. That a number of these panels are going to have to get replaced.
Company owner John Benjamin is helping bring Senator Paul Wellstone's
brake lines will all have to be replaced.
Iconic green campaign bus back to life.
What we're trying to do is bring this back to exactly what it was before.
More than 2 decades after he was killed in a plane crash.
Where he used to stand, he and Sheila.
John once met Wellstone.
A genuine man, nice person, energetic.
I will be driving it all around the state.
Just like Dave.
This bus will be a symbol of hope.
Dave Wellstone had his father's bus.
It's always been a dream. This is what the old man used to do. You know, let's go, fight.
Taken off a farm to restore it to its former glory.
I want people to be able to remember who my dad was. I want them to be able to kind of touch and feel and get a sense of hope.
The bus will appear in events across Minnesota, honoring the Wellstone legacy.
It's such a...
That's his sons doing that. I think I got the link I want here. Wellstone's legacy goes dormant after family ousted in Democratic feud. This is what I'm saying. Like, the Overton window has shifted so far that this dude, the most furthest left dude 20 years ago, he's not even furthest enough left. Well, it's only because he's not still alive to continue to slide to the left and adopt these new policies. It says in the Democratic Party's reckoning following the election of Donald Trump, an unlikely feud has erupted inside an organization at the heart of the progressive movement. So the board of directors of what was called Wellstone Action, an influential training group formed after Wellstone's death, so that would help people become community organizers and this, that, and the other, right? Dumbfounded Minnesota Democrats when it voted the late senator's sons off the governing board. So those sons that are rebuilding the bus. It says the ouster came after the sons, Mark and David Wellstone, raised concerns about overspending in areas of the organization's budget after a dispute over the direction and priorities of the group. Still simmering 3 months after the brothers' departure, the rift at Wellstone Action offers the unusually raw glimpse of a larger debate playing out among Democrats nationally as the party ramps up for the 2018 midterms. Rural voters who went for Trump also courting an increasingly diverse electorate, blah, blah. So Keith Ellison, that's that guy. He's definitely he's a Muslim. And then don't forget, Minnesota also has that Ilhan Omar, whatever her name is, and Tim Walz. I mean, Minnesota's a fucking disaster at this point. But all because it's the very slow incrementalism of stuff like this. It seems good. Hey, I want some guy that's not some rich guy. I want him to represent me, and then slowly these other bad actors come into play. It says, founded after Wellstone's death in a plane crash in 2002, Wellstone Action has trained thousands of progressive candidates, campaign operatives, and community organizers throughout the country. So we're talking about the people that are at these Doge protests. I showed the one guy, Dan Mum, the transgender activist that went and stormed the Minnesota State Capitol. These are the groups and stuff that train them. So they divorced themselves from Wellstone and completely rebranded this organization to build the grassroots people. And now they call themselves Repower. I see some people call them just it's Repower. This is their website. Team of organizers, strategists, technologists dedicated to building a liberated multiracial democracy. So Wellstone himself didn't really talk much about race, and this, whatever his little organization that was started in his name, now has become this, a truly race first thing. It says repower exists to build a critical mass of social justice movements and their leaders who embody the ideology and practice of liberatory organizing, an organizing practice that is pro-black and grounded in community, collective action, and abundance. So you can look at them all. These are the people at the Doge protest. You can spot them. Just look right at them and see right through them. They train strategic support to leaders and organizations across the progressive ecosystem, with base building as the cornerstone of sustainable organizing and power building. So basically, my black people, my race. We're excited to build a liberated, multiracial democracy free from the oppressive systems of white supremacy and patriarchy. So multi-race, just not white men, basically. Just at war with white men. And Wellstone wasn't really about that. I got too many. Oops. There was even though he's a Jew, I don't have it up right now, I don't think, but there was actual Jewish lobbies that were against him because he wasn't like pro-Israel enough. Even that's why I think the guy really just was a dipshit and just kind of floated in the wind. He didn't really have a stance one way or the other, but he wasn't even Jewish enough for the Jews, and they were like funding his opponent Norm Coleman in the other race. Okay, hold on, I got way too many. I think this is the one here. Yeah, they call him the Frozen Chosen. This was when he began his campaign for the third term, which he said he would never do. Some pro-Israel activists tried to generate support for his opponent by whispering that the two-term incumbent Wellstone was insufficiently supportive of Israel. But in almost every respect, Wellstone, who died in the crash, was more representative of the Jewish political tradition than almost anyone else in political life. So he was born, he was Russian Jewish immigrants, actually Ukrainian. He was a bleeding heart liberal. But he just wasn't like Zionist enough, I guess. He looked, there's no other way to put this, totally Jewish. Wellstone looked like the guy at the corner deli in Brooklyn, arguing politics with a thoroughly Jewish zest. Definitely zesty motherfucker. He used to refer to himself as one of the Frozen Chosen. Yeah, so he just wasn't Jewish enough. What do you got to do, man? You can't even be a Jew, man. You gotta constantly suck the Jew dick. So here's where it gets into. Let me play this video. I'm gonna take a piss while this video plays. This is one of the ones that this was actually one of my favorite channels way back in the day. It's called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. And this kind of lays out the conspiracy aspect of it. And then after this, I'll show why I think there is a little more than meets the eye at the very least.
Was Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone's fatal plane crash an accident or an assassination? You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone died on October 25, 2002, when the King Air A-100 carrying him and 7 others crashed near Eveleth, Minnesota. The timing was tragic. Wellstone, often called the conscience of the Senate, was the only senator up for re-election who dared take a stand against the war in Iraq. At the time of his death, Wellstone was ahead in the polls. President Bush, who'd supported Wellstone's opponent Norm Coleman, sent his condolences. Wellstone's campaign searched for a replacement as the National Transportation Safety Board and the FBI tried to figure out what caused this plane to crash. Yet more than 10 years later, questions about the accident remain unsolved, and a surprising amount of people believe it wasn't an accident at all. Here's where it gets crazy. Is there evidence that someone sabotaged Wellstone's plane? The NTSB concluded that the probable cause of this accident was the flight crew's failure to maintain adequate airspeed. However, authors Don Jacobs and James Fetzer believe Wellstone was assassinated. In their book, American Assassination, they claim the FBI arrived too quickly, took over the scene, and hampered the investigation. They also claim there was no distress call and that weather wasn't a factor. So what did happen? Fetzer and Jacobs think an electromagnetic weapon fried the plane's onboard electronics. The United States has researched EM weapons, such as the non-lethal active denial system. The Economist and Washington Times note that China and the United States are researching more EM weapons, but that these have not been used in the field. So, if Wellstone was murdered via an EM weapon, then it would be a system years ahead of public technology. These authors have plenty of critics, and they also have been accused of ignoring the facts in favor of a conspiracy theory. Have Fetzer and Jacobs been misinformed? Was the crash simply the result of errors by pilot Richard Conroy? Some sources argue he was a capable professional, while others allege he was unreliable. One last thing. Minnesota Public Radio uncovered extensive FBI files on Wellstone, dating from his time as a young protester to his senatorial career. They certainly had their eye on him, but does this mean they were involved in something else? Something they don't want you to know?
This was a good and decent man who cared about Americans. He always said how he spoke up for the little fellers, not the Rockefellers. When he was explaining why he wasn't a representative for the rich and powerful, he explained that the rich and powerful had plenty of representation in Washington. They didn't need his.
What an epic fucking channel, way ahead of its time. That's called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, that channel. When I looked into it, the one thing that I came across that I thought was like way too sus to ignore was this, and there's other articles on this. This doesn't look like too much, but it says the co-pilot who died in the crash of the plane played a minor role in the Zacharias Moussaoui, the alleged 9/11 conspirator who briefly attended the Egan Flight School. So if you remember the pilots of the 9/11 planes, they trained in Minnesota at these simulations. And so this co-pilot of the Paul Wellstone crash is literally 1 degree of separation away from the Zacharias Moussaoui, the main guy, hijacker from 9/11. And the co-pilot's name was Michael Guess. He had performed administrative work at the Pan Am International Flight Academy last year as he continued flying, accumulating his flying hours. There he met Moussaoui, the school's most infamous student. The 2 former Pan Am group members who tipped the FBI to Moussaoui's suspicious behavior at the school in August 2001 told the Star Tribune that Guess inadvertently gave Moussaoui unintended access to a computer program on flying a 747 jumbo jet. One of the ex-managers said Guess placed a CD-ROM containing the 747 software at a workstation in advance of one of Moussaoui's training sessions before his flight instructor arrived. After Moussaoui was arrested and the FBI searched his belongings, they found the proprietary program copied on his laptop computer, the ex-manager said. Guess was a victim of a layoff several weeks ago at the Flight Academy, where he had hoped to become a flight instructor at Executive Aviation in Eden Prairie. I literally lived right next to this place when I was living in Minnesota, where Guess had been employed as a pilot since 2001. A spokesman said the colleagues remembered Guess telling them he had played a more significant role regarding the suspicions concerning Moussaoui. Dave Mona, a spokesman for Executive Aviation, said Guess's colleagues had said that Guess had described himself as at least a role player in the detection of Moussaoui. Mona said Guess told his colleagues that he and the receptionist thought what Moussaoui was requesting was unusual and raised issues with the others. And when you search Michael Guess, he had a weird quote to his mother. So the Michael Guest, who is the co-pilot of the Paul Wellstone crash, this is basically the same story, but it says here in this one, Guest's mother, who talked to him a day or two before the accident, was still reeling from the tragedy Monday morning. The only thing I want to say is he called me and told me, "I love you, Mom, no matter what." Those were the last words he ever spoke to me. His mother said, Guest graduated from Cretin-Durham High. Classmate Israel Moses remembered him as smart, outgoing, although somewhat reserved. So that's pretty crazy. So you have the co-pilot of the Paul Wellstone plane crash, 1 degree of separation away from the Zacharias Moussaoui guy. But he also calls his mom right before the crash and says, "I love you no matter what." That's pretty fucking weird to me. And when you factor in the that other Missouri lady where her husband died in a plane crash and she was able to become kind of the interim senator until they had a re-election and she won again and again. I could totally see where this could be some kind of setup. But instead of blaming it on like Bush, like this book is doing here, post hoc, it's way easier for me to say that. To me, it would be more like whoever, not necessarily Barack Obama himself, but whoever's behind that faction that brings Barack Obama into power. Like maybe they had been eyeballing this Wellstone guy. He's totally the kind of guy that could have went out there and did the same thing as Obama, but maybe he's just not. He's not as trustworthy as Obama. He's not just gonna do whatever they say because he's gonna vote against some shit, even if he's the only one lone dissenting voice, right? He's gonna vote whatever. So maybe they were like, "Yo, this guy is just a little too much of a loose cannon. We got to get rid of this guy. Make sure we get rid of his family, and now we can bring." Barack Obama out on the main stage and bring the progressives even further left than they were before this, which maybe even Wellstone might have been the, who they wanted to use first. Maybe he just wasn't trustworthy enough. I'm not sure. I could never prove that or anything, but I can totally see why someone would think that. So I don't think it's, or I'm sorry, I do think it is a suspicious crash. But to blame George Bush just because he voted against the war, I mean, it's basically everyone says Bush did 9/11 nowadays. It's not a big deal. I don't think that would have been the nail in the coffin for this guy. So my man, EBT's in the chat. I see you, brother. Did he set up another stream? I don't see another stream by EBT. That's basically all I had is Paul Wellstone, the shifting of the Overton window, the extreme destruction of Minnesota into a low-trust society over 20 years, one generation, as Yuri Bezmenov says, 15 to 20 years, because that's how long it takes to run a student through the entire school system. And that's about it for tonight, y'all. Appreciate everyone that was here. If you're watching later, if you made it this far, consider becoming a member for only 99 cents. YouTube's giving me a deal where YouTube's gonna pay me out $5 for every member I can get until the 21st, but it does not count for the gifted memberships. I'm gonna put more and more videos on the members only that I have currently privated. And then tomorrow I'm gonna start doing Throwback Thursdays. I'm gonna go through my catalogs and start dropping different old ones that might have been members only or forgotten streams. I just have so much content, it's insane. I'll start dropping those out on Thursdays. The one tomorrow features our boy Davey Crocco. There's another one of his streams with him on there in the members only videos right now. So thanks to everyone that was here. I appreciate your time. And peace out. Christ is King. Don't forget. Appreciate you, W.
Make America great again.
To make America great again. Make America great again. To make America great again.
And yes, together we will make America great again.